All right, as we close into what appears to be the end of the pandemic, all kinds of questions are now coming up in our heads. What's going to happen when we go back to work? So I've invited our friend Jamie Wright, who's an employment attorney, to kind of help us walk through the paces of what we're going to expect. Jamie, this is kind of a bit stressful for a lot of us.
Yeah, I get it. It's really stressful because there's some unknowns, right? Mm-hmm. There's possibly a new variant of COVID. There's the question of if my employer has to if I have to take the vaccine. There's questions of what happens for the employer if someone gets sick. So there's a lot of outstanding questions out there.
So let's go through that, because first of all, your employer is going to say, all right, we're back to normal, everybody back to work. Is it going to be 25% of the workforce? Am I going to be separated at work? Is there going to be social distancing? The bathrooms, breaks, lunches, and the death. I mean, let's go through that process, because I think there's going to be a lot of questions that people have.
So ideally, if one of your employees says, hey, you know what, I have a health condition, or I'm unable to come to work from home, or I'm unable to come in, offer them the option to work from home if their duties allow them to do so. There should be social distancing. You can order a kit from CalChamber if you're in California that has the little circles with the social distancing on it and the signs that can be put up. So have all that in your workplace. The other thing is, it's really important for employers to know this. As of January 1, if someone gets sick from COVID in your office, you have an affirmative duty to inform everyone who works there. If not, you can face stiff penalties for motion.
Yeah, that's interesting, because California's been very strict about the way it behaves, and it continues to be that way. In other states, of course, that's not even an issue. So, so most places of employment that I've experienced give you 3 to 5 days of sick days for the rest of your year. Mm-hmm. Is that going to change?
Well, so, with COVID happening, there's a lot of supplemental paid leave and COVID leave, both federally and state. So if you do get sick from COVID, the employer is obligated to give you the time off. Now, they don't have to necessarily pay you, but under the supplemental paid leave, they will. But once that's run out, they don't have to pay you. So it's important for, any employer to have experienced employment counsel on hand to give you that information. And if you can't, say, afford an employment attorney, go to the CalChamber. They are a great resource for giving you information.
Let me ask you I think it's really important, because there's so many unknowns. If I'm an employer, if I own a restaurant, if I have a small business, tell me about the value, and this is, I'm going to toot your own horn, the value of having an experienced attorney, employment attorney's counsel at this particular point.
It is invaluable to have experienced employment counsel that can help you navigate whether you can mandate someone taking the vaccine, how much time you have to give someone off. Is it paid? Is it not paid? Do they qualify for FMLA or CFRA? What does your handbook say? Do you have all the proper posters up? Are you doing the proper reporting? There's a lot of employment attorneys like me who do concierge type services. So if you don't want to retain me on a monthly basis, I can give you a packet of information, and it can be for a flat rate. So it's invaluable to have employment counsel.
There's got to be a change in the way we insure our businesses as well. I would think that's going to be a big thing now. If I'm an insurance agent, I'm like pouncing, because I think I can make some money here.
Well, there are a lot of exceptions. One of the big things that's happened is the business interruption, and a lot of insurance companies are choosing not to cover that. So there's a lot of litigation surrounding that. So the first thing I always tell my employers, for the ones that I represent, is check with the broker to see what's covered and what's an exclusion. Because in a lot of cases, they don't want to cover it, right? Because they say, oh, it's excluded because, it's not, a natural disaster per se. So in some cases, yes. In other cases, no, they're just choosing not to cover some of these items. And so sometimes you have to litigate.
Now, let me tell you why I asked that question. This is that there are people who are nervous about COVID. Let's say you're in a restaurant and somebody's not wearing a mask, and there's a confrontation, and there's violence of any kind. People, when we've experienced this, we've seen this in the news. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that maybe employers aren't thinking about, restaurant owners aren't considering.
Right.
Should they consider it?
They should. The question will be: is it considered negligence on the employee on the restaurant's behalf, or is it an intentional tort by some third party? Those are the kinds of things that you have to look at your policy and see if they're covered. Because a lot of times, the intentional torts of third parties are not covered under your policy, but negligence on your behalf is covered.
No, that's really interesting. So,
yes.
If I want to reach out to you, how do I get a hold of you? I'm an anxious employer. I'm an anxious restaurant owner, and I'm concerned about all these things. How do I reach you?
I'm actually really easy to find. You can call me. It's 866-731-7505. Or you can find me on my website and send me a message. It's JamieWrightESQ.com. Really easy. My first and last name. So JamieWrightESQ.com.
That is very easy to find. And we really appreciate your counsel and advice on this.
Yes.
I hope that everyone calms down, that we relax, and we enjoy what's beginning to be a normalization of our lives, right?
Hopefully.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you so much for your time.